Hello and welcome to another episode of the Project Purple podcast. I'm Dino Varley, founder and CEO of Project Purple and host of the Project Purple podcast. We have another interview for you coming up with a very special guest after a few updates here. I always say quick, but these aren't quick. It's crazy. We are already more than halfway through 2023 as we record this, and we are on pace for another record year. 2022 was our best year ever, which is just, I'm blessed. We're blessed here at Project Purple. And we just want to thank everyone who has supported, donated, or participated in a Project Purple event in 2023. We look forward to the next couple of months as we hopefully do set another record and make 2023 our best year ever. Many of our fall marathon teams are full. It's so freaking crazy. But we still have a couple spots left in our Twin Cities marathon team, our Detroit full and half marathon and 5K team, our Chicago fall half marathon team, and our newly added South Norwalk half marathon and 5K that happens in South Norwalk, Connecticut in the fall. We also have our virtual event, Work Harder, It's Not Chemo, coming up here in August, as well as in person in Park Ridge, Illinois, our annual Horner Hustle 5K, which happens on August 19th. Another really exciting new event for us for those that live in New England, or if you want to fly in for this, you can as well. But coming up on September 16th in Hartford, Connecticut is our new Urban Rappel series, Over the Edge at 90 State House Square, as we go over the edge, 14 stories for Project Purple and to raise awareness for pancreatic cancer. To learn more about all these great events, visit our website at projectpurple.org and make sure to follow us on social media to stay up to date on all things Project Purple. Without further ado, let's meet our special guest today, coming to us all the way from Houston, Texas, pancreatic cancer survivor, Israel Garcia. Israel, welcome.
What up, Dino? Purple, Project Purple, baby, up in the house.
I love it. So,
thanks for having me on, man. And real quick, congratulations, man. Those are some big numbers, bro.
Well,
y'all making moves out there.
Hard work pays off, as I say.
That's good, man. You guys are doing a lot of good stuff out there. I'm really happy to hear, that your projects are moving along and hopefully they get better and bigger for you guys. Keep it going, man.
Well, that's the goal. As we were saying before we hit record, we were playing catch up here. And, it's a lot of work, but we're trying to, raise as much awareness and as much funding for research to help patients. So the more and more that we raise, the more and more we can do. I don't know, it's not rocket science, as I usually say.
I know. The more people involved, the more things you can accomplish, man.
Absolutely.
And to see that, man, it's very inspiring and admirable. So I appreciate it. I know I do.
Well, thank you. I know we were talking before we hit record, and as big as the world is, it's really a small world. And I know one of our former guests here on the podcast, Tommy, who I know we've promoted a couple times on social media, really amazing story. Tommy Alvarez out of El Paso. I believe you guys connected, and I think I saw, now that I think about this, I think that's where I saw kind of his post on you about you fighting and doing what you're doing with pancreatic cancer, and just kind of inspired by it. I always say, Israel, like anytime anyone comes out publicly and talks about this disease, it's so special because you don't have to. And we're going to talk about this here in a second. Even in your line of work, you don't have to either in what you do day to day. So I think, you said it's inspiring. It's inspiring to have complete strangers come out and cheer like the lowest of the lows, or what they're going through, to help other people and to raise positivity and awareness for this thing called pancreatic cancer.
Absolutely, man. It's been an interesting a revelation for me, honestly, a personal revelation of how much people are more connected. I think there's a lot of there's fake division. It's not real. It's not real. There's more people care about each other than there are people who are separated. Whatever it is you want to call it, the media, or I don't know what it is that you want to blame, but there's more people that relate to you than there is people who are against it, or against you. So I've learned a lot through that process of, kind of sharing my journey into this thing that happened to me. And it's been incredible, man. It's so impactful in my life to have people reach out to me or give me advice, or they're praying for me. I don't even know who these people are, and they're just sending positive vibes, and it's just motivating. It's just fuel for you to, you know, keep doing that. So it's been good, you know.
Well, that's something that you said, just very powerful in the sense that I'm giggling here, but you know, like, there isn't division. I think people really do care about other people, regardless of your orientation, regardless of your faith, your race, your politics. Like, at the end of the day, and I think there's a lot of negative feeding into that. Clearly, there's always going to be.
Be scared of everything, or don't be that, or these people. And it's like, no, it's not, dude. I'll be the first one to say I've traveled the country. I'm a stand-up comedian, so I've traveled all over. 90% of my experiences with human beings in all states are friendly, nice, kind. You know, there's a lot of good people out there. There's more good people than there is bad. You know, there's always a deal with some guy, but
correct.
For the most part, it's all good people, man. And we all want to do good for each other. And it's showing, like, with Project Purple, and you know how many people are getting involved and supporting the cause. And there's so many people out there that are invested in making a change, you know, and I want to just be a part of that. You know, it inspired me to get involved more and learn and spread as much what I've learned to other people, you know, and through that it helps another person, and that other person learns, and then so it becomes this web of just spreading out information and knowledge to everyone else, you know, and it's only helping everyone, you know. So
paying it forward.
Yeah, exactly.
So let's get into your story here. And you know, our first segment here on the podcast at Project Purple, we always allow our guests kind of the opportunity. And I know, you know, you are a comedian, you've been on the tour, you got a pretty sizable following on social media. Not everyone may know your story. And this is kind of always our first segment, like I said, is our guest opportunity to kind of share their journey with pancreatic cancer. So with that, I want to hand the mic over to you. And I'd love to hear more about, like, how you got diagnosed, like, you know, how this journey's been for the time you've been on this journey with this thing called pancreatic cancer.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be more than glad to share it. Well, first of all, yeah, I'm a stand-up comedian. I'm originally from El Paso, Texas. And then I was coming back and forth from San Antonio to Houston. I'm working with a really good comedian, good friend of mine named Chingo Bling out of Houston, Texas. Check him out if you guys have a chance. He's been really instrumental in my journey. He's helped me out a lot, and so big shout out to him. But I've been going back and forth, and this year was interesting because I've never been to a hospital. I've never had any health issues at all. Like, I've always been a pretty healthy guy. And then one day, and it's all when all these things were amazing things were happening. It's always when you're like, everything's working, going my way. I got the, you know, my tour, I'm touring all over. And then that maybe like about a month before I got diagnosed, I got booked in Japan and North Korea. So I was going to do my first international comedy tour. And I had been waiting for that forever, for years and years. So I was like, it's all coming together, like, finally, like, all the great things, you know? And then one day, out of nowhere, I'm at home, and I was with my girlfriend at the time, and she said, your eyes look yellow. And I was all like, what? My eyes look yellow? She's like, yeah, you have like yellow eye. And she's a nurse. So she was like, that's not good, you know? And I was all like, what? So I scheduled an appointment at a local clinic. And then I went in, and he didn't know what was going on. He noticed it. He thought it was hepatitis. It wasn't hepatitis. You know, I had nothing with that. Then he said, maybe it's your gallbladder. Then he checked my gallbladder, and it says, I don't think it's your gallbladder. And again, pancreatic cancer is difficult to detect. You know, that's why you have the statistics, I guess, that you have, because it's difficult to find before it gets worse. So I didn't know it. And so after that, I was like, that was about 2 weeks. And I was like, this doesn't, I can't wait. Then my skin started to get yellow. And that's when I was like, so I just went to the ER, and I went to the ER where my girlfriend was working at, and they took me in, you know, and then that's where it all started for me. You know, the whole testing, they had me there for like 6 days or something like that. Like I wasn't eating, they weren't letting me eat. They were poking me, keeping me up all night, checking up on me, doing all these tests. And then, finally, after those days, they came in and the nurse came in and she was like, you have pancreatic cancer. And that just was like, it was like shell shock. Like I couldn't even, I remember when they said that, I couldn't even, it's like I was numb. I don't know how to feel. I couldn't understand. Like, I was like, what? And just, you almost don't understand. Like, I couldn't grasp it. That I was like, I have cancer? Like, what? Like, what's going on? Like, this doesn't make any sense, And I remember, like, after that, it just, everything went black, It was probably one of the most hardest things that I've ever gone through in my life. I think when something like that happens to you, you kind of you don't know how to cope. You don't know how to deal with it. It's just so much information that you're getting. And they're like, well, we need to start you on chemo. We need to fix this. We need to apply for the benefit. So it's just like, once it's like a race. It's like a race. Mm-hmm. As soon as it starts, it's like, boom, you got to run. And, the whole time I'm trying to do that, I'm trying to deal with it mentally, because I was out here in Houston and, my mom and my dad came out and they were taking care of me and stuff like that. But within those first 2 months, it got real. I went into a massive depression that I wouldn't wish on my worst enemy. It just got dark because being a comedian, I'm not used to being in hospitals. I'm not used to being sick. I'm not used to being the guy that has bad news. Like, I'm the funny guy. I'm the guy that makes everybody laugh and makes them. So it was like a whole change of like, pace for me, and now I'm in hospitals and I'm used to comedy clubs. I'm here to, the comedy clubs are so opposite than a hospital is. They're so opposite. So I'm like getting used to this whole hospital thing and, doing chemo and doing all those things. And when you're in that situation, I was trying to mentally get myself out of it, but I couldn't find anything to hold on to give me any type of like hope. It was just like this dark place. I couldn't find anything good in it. In other words, I couldn't find anything good in it at all. Like, I have cancer, I'm sick, I have all these things that are happening to me, and I couldn't find any silver lining in it, And for about 2 months, I struggled with a lot of depression. It got really bad for me. I didn't know what to hold on to, and I wasn't telling people that much about what was going on. And I was just kind of keeping it to myself. And it stayed that way. And there was just so many things that I was going through. And I got to a point where it was so bad for me that like I just almost kind of gave up. I got to a point where I truly started to give up. My mind wasn't there. I was cashed out, just shattered in a way, and as that's happening, my body is now following my mind, because my spirit. I want to try to explain it how I came up with what is. My body started to give out. I started to lose weight, and I wasn't with pancreatic cancer. When I first got diagnosed, I lost like 40, 50 pounds. So I was already like, man, this isn't good. I'm already a thin guy as it is, but I lost more. And then when I got diagnosed with cancer, I kept losing weight. And then I would lose more weight, and I would lose more. And every appointment that I'm going to, I'm losing more and more weight. And I don't understand why, because I'm trying to eat, I'm trying to do this, and just nothing is happening. I got my lowest point, I got to 98 pounds. That's how bad it got for me. And I didn't understand why. I was like, why is this happening? I don't understand. They got to a point where they were really worried about it, and they were like, you could possibly have cachexia, mm-hmm. which is something that could happen to you. Yeah. And that's not good, because then your body shuts down and you're going to die. So right. They were really worried about me. And I was like, what's going on? Like, why is this happening? I couldn't find it. And what I realized is like it was my spirit was broken. And if your spirit is broken, your body's gonna follow suit with your spirit, you know? So since my body was broken, I was depressed, your body just reacts to your emotions, to your energy. You know, I realize how important that is now. I've always known it, you know, where like, well, if you're positive, yeah, I know that. But when you actually see it for yourself and you experience it, the actual, like how real it is, like if your spirit is broken, your body will not heal. You have to have a strong spirit to allow your body to heal and get better and to get through things, you know. I understood that, you know, and that time when I was losing all that weight, I got to a point where I gave up, like, and I remember one night I gave up, and I remember I kind of like talked to God, and then I was like, you know what, God, like, I kind of was frustrated more than any. It was a frustrating rant to God that I had. I had a moment of complete just like, I was in my room and I was like, do whatever you want. Like, I don't care anymore, and do whatever you want. You control whatever you want. Because this whole time I'm trying to control everything. You know, I'm taking care of my relationship. I'm trying to figure out what I want to do with my mom and my dad. What I got to do this. So this whole time I'm doing everything. And the more I'm doing that, the more I'm trying to take control of things, the more it's imploding on me. You know, and I didn't understand that. I'm like, I'm trying, but it's not working. And that's why I got to that point where I was like, you know what, God, I'm doing this. I'm doing that. I'm trying to do what you want me to do. I don't know what you want me to do. At this point, I was like, do whatever you want. And I don't care anymore. I don't care. I just angry rant. And I fell asleep. And the next day, and I can't explain, I don't know if people are going to call me crazy. They can call me crazy, but I know my truth. That's my truth. I woke up the next day, and I woke up at like 8 a.m. And then I grabbed my phone, and there was this song by Greta Van Fleet called Meeting the Master. It's not a Christian song. It's kind of like a spiritual song. I heard it. I liked it. I was like, oh, cool. It's a really good song, you know? And then halfway through during the song, I'm laying in my bed, and out of nowhere, I heard a voice. And I don't know. I can't explain it. It wasn't my voice. It wasn't my subconscious. It was none of that. I know what I heard. And I just heard a voice that said, get up. That's all I heard. Just this voice that just told me, get up. And as soon as I heard it, I just got up. And then I put on my pants. And as I'm putting on my pants, like all the answers, all the things that I was bothered by, all these things that were worrying me, everything was gone. Like all the answers were in my head of what I needed to do. All these things that were worrying me, I already had the answers to them. Like it was like this. It wasn't an instant. It wasn't like a process. It wasn't like anything. And I just followed it. You know, I went that day, I went to my mom, Dad, I need you guys to go back to El Paso. I'm going to figure this out for a little bit by myself. Boom, sent them back. My relationship, I had to take care of that. And all these other things that I had going on, like I don't know. And after that day, literally, it just, my whole psyche, everything did a 180, complete 180. I got up, I started running, I started using my bicycle, I started doing all these things, and then I started going live, you know. Once I started to go live and started sharing my story, people started reaching out to me. People started saying thank you or giving me advice that I needed to hear. And then it's just, once I got that, then it was like a rope that was dropped down to me from the cave, and I just latched onto it, and it pulled me out of there. You know, it pulled me out of there because I was like, there's something good in here. And that's what I was struggling with. That I couldn't find anything good in this situation that I was in. But once I saw that there's so many people out there that are reaching out and saying, thank you for sharing your story. I had people calling me, hey, can you talk to my wife? She got diagnosed, and I need somebody to talk to her. She's depressed. Or another, I'm depressed. I just need somebody to talk to because I'm sick. And all these people. And I was like, oh my God, like it was overwhelming. The amount of people reaching out to communicate. And from there, I was like, there's something good in here. And if there's something good that I can utilize to help others, then that's all I need, you know. And I found the silver lining that allowed me to cope with this. and to manage my path to do something good with it, you know, and that kind of led me to everything that I have. And like, it even got to where now I'm going to be recording a comedy special on August 13th at the El Paso Comedy. I never imagined. I couldn't even write a joke. Like, I was so far gone. And now I'm recording a comedy special on August 13th at the El Paso Comedy Show. So, you know, that kind of like led me. And I'm like, if I can do this, if I can do these things, then people are going to see and they're going to watch. And hopefully it helps them to get through what they're going through, you know? So that kind of is up to date as to where I'm at right now.
So powerful. I mean, I know we were talking before. I mean, I've 250 plus episodes. I've talked to a lot of survivors, probably over 100 survivors. And there's a lot of common themes that I find, Israel, and a lot of them. And one of them, you know, mentioned faith. But then also like, there is like, and it's not a tipping point, but it's this point where like people realize like they can do this. And
absolutely.
For those listening, you know, I don't know if you understand, if the people really can comprehend that, I guess is what I'm trying to say, because I mean, I've never gone through cancer, but I've had times in my life where you go through that. But it's nothing like battling cancer, right? But but my point here is like, from talking to people, a lot of them share very similar experiences where they reach a point where they realize like, okay, like there's a flip, there's faith, there's something, but we can say it, but until they actually go through it, that's when it happens.
Yeah, and it's not easy. It's not easy. It's extremely challenging to get up. It's like learning to crawl, and then you crawl, and then now you walk, and then you run.
Correct.
But I can see it. I can see it destroying people bad. Yeah. You know, it has the complete ability to do that, but you have to have massive amount of strength to get up from it. Like, you know, but it's possible. You know, and once you do that, that's only going to help you in getting through it. You know, so I feel very fortunate. I mean, I know some people that have been sick and they're still not, I don't want to say that they're stuck, because I mean, there's no, oh, well, come on, you can do it. You know, everybody's different and nobody's wrong. Sometimes people take a little bit longer. Some people are sick right now that have been sick for longer and they're depressed. I know a lot of them, you know, but to me, it's always been about like, I just feel like 2 months to me was more than I could have done, being in that place of just hopelessness. It's hopelessness. Yeah. It was just complete hopelessness. And it's new. It's a shock. I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know what that meant. You know, it's new about pancreatic. And the first thing you do is you look up, you go onto Google, you know, and there it is. You see your statistics and all that. And like, oh man, even when I got diagnosed, that was one of the hardest well, not the diagnosis, the staging laparoscopy was also one of the most intense weeks of my life. With that week, when they're like, we're going to do a staging laparoscopy, and then we're going to determine what stage you're in your cancer. And I saw, like, you know, I think I don't want to say a statistic, but you know, they're pretty high for stage 4. Mm-hmm. And so I was like, oh man, like here I can't, you know, I'm not going to be one of the lucky ones, you know, start putting stuff in here. It's just negativity. And by the grace of God, you know, mine was caught a little bit early, sort of. They staged me at stage 2B, which is still for it to be resected. So I can still have resectability, which is kind of hard to catch it early, you know, and that's why I think bringing up awareness and stuff like that as much as we can help push the thing a little bit, so that maybe we could find ways to diagnose people a lot earlier and find it, you know. So I got really lucky at stage 2B where we are right now, you know. And
for the listeners and the watchers that don't know you, you're young. How old are you?
I'm 36 years old.
Okay, so, and I'm not making excuses for any medical profession, because I think no matter what, like, they should recognize if someone's yellow that, like, hey, something's not right, and one of them is pancreatic cancer. So, and I also feel like in the last year, I've met a lot of people that are like, we've had guests. I just had a guy who was 28. We've had 32. So we've had people, we were just out, I know a guy who's in his mid 30s, that lives here in the US as well. So, people are out there, and I think the thought process 5 years ago was like, it's an old person's disease. Not that,
absolutely.
It shouldn't, like, it's cancer, dude. Like, it doesn't matter, right? Like, I don't know.
It's known to be cancer when people are in their olders, when they're
correct.
60, 70.
But that's false. And I know there was some recent data. Even there was a very good report actually that came out beginning of the year that talked about females, actually young females. They're seeing this massive rise in young females for pancreatic cancer, which was kind of fascinating because, again, we were interviewing people over the last couple of years that were not old; they were young. So I have a good question, and then we'll talk a little bit about treatment where you are right now. Prior to all this, and I know this is always like a loaded question. There's no right or wrong to it, and it's not something to beat yourself up on. But now that you know what you know, could you look back and be like, hey, like, yeah, man, there was like that week that I had like crazy like indigestion, or like I was rashy and I took that Benadryl and it like took care of it?
I mean, I've thought about it, but there wasn't anything like that. I mean, I had heartburn. Maybe I remember there was a time where I did have heartburn and I would take medication, like over the counter stuff, but then it went away for like a whole year. I didn't get it like at all. But the year before that, I remember getting it and being like, man, I have heartburn, but it was real minimal heartburn. It wasn't intense or nothing like that, but I would feel that, kind of a thing, but never where it was like, and I would take that heartburn medication to go away. So it wasn't really like anything I thought, I don't know. I never had any symptoms that I felt like where I needed to be at the hospital or get it checked out. It just never occurred to me to do that. I guess I would encourage people, if they do have something like that, to get it checked out. But I mean, as far as anything goes, I don't know. I really don't know. I asked them, like, when I got diagnosed, like, how long have I had this? Like, how long has this been happening? And they're like, you probably have had this cancer for about 2 years. 1 to 2 years, they said. But I can't really put my finger on anything, to be honest. I don't know. I know that I did my genetics test.
Yeah.
I did a genetics test, and I came out positive for the ATM gene.
So you have ATM. Okay, so that was my next question then. So from a family history standpoint, like, what does that look like? Do you have cancer in the family? Has anyone ever had pancreatic cancer?
Not pancreatic cancer, but on my dad's side, he's had, his dad died of cancer, his mom died of cancer, his niece died of cancer. So there's like about 3 people on my dad's side of the family that had cancer and passed away. Wasn't pancreatic though.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I mean, I had my mom and my dad going to go get their genetics tests already. So we're going to have to wait on their results to see which one has it. And if they do have the ATM, then we can get that information over to my brother and my sister so that they can get checked out too. So, I mean, that's something I highly recommend anybody who's going through something like this, or knows anybody, or if you know a family member, a parent or something that has pancreatic cancer, I highly, highly, highly recommend that you get that checked out. It could save your life. I really highly recommend getting a genetics test, big time.
Well, and I feel too, that's like one piece that has really improved over the last couple of years, is knowing these genes. And I'm sure they've probably talked to you a little bit about this, and we'll talk about this now as we go into like what you're doing right now in terms of treatment. With certain genes, there are certain protocols that work better than others. So there's some hope there. And we've had plenty of people on the podcast that were like BRCA positive, that have actually done fairly well. The one challenging piece is like I wouldn't say that for some that the cancer then is eliminated, but it's always like, okay, so what's the next thing, right? Like, what's the next thing that we need to do? It's kind of like there's a little bit of a plan, more so with the genetic piece, because I think the medical community has figured out, the proper protocol for like the BRCA and some of the other gene mutations. But I honestly think is real. Like we're just scratching the surface on this stuff.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, and that's where, you know, to your point, as you said, you know, awareness and, you know, awareness brings funding, you know, for research. We've got to do more. And, you know, there are alternatives out there as well in terms of treatment. And so with that being said, what is your treatment looking like right now? Because I know we were talking a little bit before the year about some of the things you're doing and whatnot. So let's talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. As far as treatment goes, they decided to put me on FOLFIRINOX. So they have me on FOLFIRINOX right now.
Yep.
And it's over the 3 days. They give me the little pump, the chemo pump that I take home for 2 days. Then they take it off. So it's about 3 days of chemo that I go through every 2 weeks, which is, I mean, at first, like, it's funny because in the beginning, I was like, oh, I got this. Like, but the more you do it, you start getting complications, and then you start feeling it. You start being like, oh, okay, like this, it's getting a little bit longer to recover from it, you know. And so they've had me on chemo right now. Like, they had me on chemo. This is gonna be my 7th. The next one coming up is on the 7th. I have a CT scan, which I haven't had since I got diagnosed. So CT scans are always really important for people with cancer, so they can determine, you know, if the treatment's working, if it's not working, what can we do, you know, spread, all that type of stuff. So that's going to be a huge day for me. If anybody could send me positive vibes, I appreciate it. But from there, we're really going to determine what steps we take, you know, determine from those results. But they have me on that, you know. I mean, I'm doing some other stuff on my own too, you know. I take as many vitamins as I can take every day. And, you know, it's hard sometimes to work with because they're very, I don't want to say that they're strict, but they have a protocol that they go by, and anything outside of that, they're not going to accept it. They're not going to say, maybe we could look into it. Maybe we could find, no, there's nothing like that. You know, I got lucky with one doctor who really put in some work, and he's like, yeah, I want to look stuff up. And, you know, he kind of was real cool about it. But it's very rare that you're going to hear a doctor kind of listen to what you're saying. You know, they have their strict way of doing it. And if it's not what they do, they're not going to accept anything, any type of vitamin supplements. They're just going to deny it all the way. And that's where you kind of have to make, you know, you kind of have to look out for yourself and be an advocate for yourself, you know, because at the end of the day, it is your body. And you know, I work with the medical industry and the doctors, and I cut back on a lot of stuff. You know, I'm doing all the stuff they want me to do, but I also feel like there's more that we can do for ourselves that they're not able to. They're not able to speak about or talk about or recommend for whatever reason. But that, you know, and so I've been doing that. You know, there's a lot. I take a lot of supplements and stuff like that to help, and it helps me. I don't know. I can't say it does because it does. Like when I take those vitamins and supplements after chemo, it helps me recover quicker because it's vitamins. You know, and when you get put on chemo kills you. It's what's happening. It's killing your bad cells and it's killing your good cells.
Correct.
And you need something to help you regenerate that as quickly as possible so that you can be ready for the next one. You know, and I noticed that, you know, I think taking certain things and supplements is something that we need to look into more deeply and research. I always recommend anybody to research all the kind of stuff that's out there. There's a lot of good stuff that can help you get through it, you know?
So not that we're advocating that people take this without doing their own research, but for what's working for you, what are some of the supplements you're taking that you have found through your own research and through what you have done, what's working for you? And I always say this, you know, what we share here on the podcast isn't medical advice. We're not giving anyone medical advice to go run to the compound pharmacies or anything like that. But
no, everybody's different.
Yeah, everybody. Yeah, exactly. Everybody is different.
Everybody and this is the thing that I always tell people is like, everybody is an individual.
Correct.
What works for one person might not work for somebody else. And you have to know that. You can't be like, oh, well, this guy said this and that's what it is. This is what's going to do this. It doesn't work that way because everybody's body is different than everybody else's, you know? So that's where you have to kind of find what works for you. If just doing what the doctors say, then that's great. And you feel good about it. for all means, go for it if it's making you feel good,
Yeah.
And that's the way I feel about it. There's certain, I'm just, and the thing with me is I just take supplements. It's nothing real fancy. I got into like, sea moss. I take sea moss every day. I take gaviola leaves. That has helped me out a lot in the last couple of months. I just feel really good when I take the leaf. Just things like that. Try to take as much natural herbs. I started taking. I'd be going kind of hard though, man. I don't want to. I don't know what kind of podcast this is, but I do like ivermectin. I take one ivermectin a day. It doesn't do anything to me. I don't feel anything wrong. So I take a little ivermectin and fenbendazole. I've taken fenbendazole before. A lot of vitamin C, a lot of vitamin D. I was in like Mexico. I don't know if I told you a little bit about it. I went to Mexico, got some medication at a clinic. Big shout out to, I think it's called CHIPSA, CHIPSA. They're a hospital with American doctors who decided to work their own way outside of the medical industry. So they have a hospital out there in Tijuana. They've been really good with me and they've helped me out a lot. And they've been extremely helpful in my journey. And they got me on some high dose vitamin C. They recommended vitamin C and vitamin K3, which is not over the counter here in America. They don't recommend it or prescribe it here in America, but there is research that they've done and with patients that it has worked. So they gave me the right amount for me and for what I'm going through. And I barely started taking it, so I don't really know. But just things like that, I like trying stuff out, and if I don't like it or if I don't feel good, I move it along and find other things that might work for me. But for the most part, it's all natural supplements. Most of it is just, things like that I've been taking that I'm just doing what I can, what I feel is right, So, and that's what I recommend for everybody else.
And you're seeing positive results from all this in terms of, I know you mentioned before, like your appetite stimulated, like you're eating.
My appetite, THC tinctures. I got the, oh my God, it's called there's a formula that they've used, and man, I'm having a brain fart right now. It's not the GERS, it's I forgot what it is, but there's a ratio of THC that you take that helps.
Yeah.
So there's these little tinctures that are different ratio, and I take that, and that helped me out a lot with my weight gain. That helped me out so much with my appetite, like and sleep. Insomnia. I've always struggled with it.
Yeah.
And especially when I got sick, it was just I was up all night. I couldn't sleep. And obviously that fuels depression. Yeah. You wake up late. You're not in the sun. You don't want to go out because you're trying to sleep. And then by the time you wake up, it's 4 or 5 p.m. The sun's already going down, and you're just in this mode. You're in this mood of just, and it messes you up. And so when I started taking that, it helped me out a lot. And unfortunately here in America, it's not very, at least in my situation, they don't recommend it. They won't even look at it. They don't even have an opinion on it.
Yeah, it's weird. I there has been some data, but not enough, right? Because THC's been around here for 100 years, right? But it's fascinating. I have found, and again, I'm not a medical expert, but I feel like a lot of times when people go down that road, there's this synthetic. And I always say, like, it's not really the real thing because it's a synthetic. Yeah. They give you the pills, and I don't know if that's like a pharma thing or, where. But we've had plenty of people that have come on that have talked about the benefits of using THC straight from like a dispensary or, from other ways that people get it, which again, I'm not advocating because, that's not our place. That's what we're saying. Yeah, it's personal choice. Or I should say, like, we don't want anyone getting arrested in states that it's not legal to do. But in a lot of states, as long as you get your card, you can go into a dispensary, right?
Yes.
But we've had people, and I've known people that have had amazing results with it. So as I've said before we hit record, like, my job's not the judge or the jury. Our job's to inform. And, if there's people out there that are using it and receiving benefits from it, if it's appetite stimulation, if it's sleep, and you bring up something that's really, really critical, man. I think here in Israel is like, I think we always get focused on treating the cancer, but there's like this recovery in this aspect. And you mentioned mental health a lot here.
Yes.
Which I guess I'll put that brokenness, that spirit that was broken. That's like, I put that in that mental health box, but then there's also this physical aspect, right? And it's almost, it's like a world-class boxer. You need that recovery, right? From these fights. Like you're constantly going in every week and having this chemotherapy, which is like this 12-round knockout, drag out fight. Yeah. And you got to have your body recover, and sleep is important for anyone. Nutrition is extremely important. Yep. So if you can find ways to help you with those two things, which are critical in fighting this thing, it's a win-win.
Yes, absolutely, man. I think you just said it right. You absolutely nailed it on there. I think it's highly, highly important, and it is, the more and more I go through chemo, the harder it's a fight, exactly like a boxing match. And you're just like, whoa, like, boom, I'm on my 6th chemo and I'm already feeling it like, man, like it's your bones hurt. Yeah. I'm starting to get headaches. I'm getting more nauseous. I guess I feel like throwing up. And I haven't had those before. But it's just as you go further down that path, it becomes hard. And I try to figure out how I can recover for the next one. Yeah. Because you get it. It takes you a week to get better. Then the next week, boom, you got to sit down and go through it again. And so that week is very crucial for you to be ready for the next round.
Absolutely.
They even call them rounds.
Yeah, they do.
You have a round of chemo.
A round of chemo. Yeah, it's like a great analogy. So I got to ask a question. So this has all been within the last 4 months for you, right?
Within the last 4 months.
So this has been you've been turned upside down, right side up, back and forth 13 times. So you're a full-time stand-up comic. What happened to Japan and South Korea?
Oh, it's everything. I was on tour. This year I started to really I've been doing stand-up for about 15 years. Wow. And professionally, maybe about 5 years, where I'm all the way full-time stand-up comic. It's all I've known. I've been doing stand-up comedy longer than I've been in school. You know what I mean? That's all. I started when I was 19 years old. Wow. But I knew that's what I was going to do. And I knew it was going to be a difficult path. I think going through the struggles of being a comedian has given me the strength. A lot of strength came out of that I went through so much trying to make a dream come true, because it's not easy to do something like that. Yeah. And you go through so much beatings that you get, through the whole, you're traveling 6-7 hours for a show, and they only pay you $50. So you're just getting to go and come back, and you're coming out even, or now you come out losing, because now I got to pay for food. You're not going to pay for my hotel, none of that, but I knew where I was going, and I knew I was going to get there. And it took me over 10 years, but I got there, you know what I mean? And I've been doing stand-up comedy. That's all I've ever known. So when all of this happened, I was just, everything stopped, everything completely stopped. I lost my humor. I couldn't be funny. I would be like, well, maybe I can write a joke, or maybe I can. No, there was just nothing. I was just in such a bad mental state that I didn't see me doing stand-up anytime soon. It wasn't until I started getting better the day after I heard that voice. The day after, I woke up, same time, 8 a.m. I grabbed my phone and I wrote my first joke about cancer. I wrote a cancer joke. And I remember being like, what? I wrote a joke. And then from there, it kind of became well, I could still do this. You know what I mean? And then from there, it started to get me out of this, and then kind of going back to it. Obviously, right now at the moment, I can't tour, or if I do, it's got to be within certain times. Yeah. Normally when you go on tour, you're going on tour for 2-3 weeks, and you're on the road. You're on the road. And that's my life. I've been on the road 2-3 weeks at a time, and you're going to different city and traveling and going everywhere. And now that I have this, it's a little bit debilitating, man, because it kind of slows you down. It forces you to slow down. And but I'm trying like now to I'm barely coming back into it. So I've been trying to managing it. Like now I do feel a bit more comfortable. You know, I haven't been on a show since I got diagnosed. So it's been 4 months since I've done stand-up comedy, which is insane because I've never gone that long without performing. I've been performing nonstop for over 15 years.
Wow.
So this is the first time that I just was like, I can't, you know, but I slowly I'm getting back in. And then I got my special on August 13th, right? Which which is extremely, I knew when I took this on that it was going to be hard, but I think I was in over my head a little bit because I know how hard it was going to get.
Yeah.
You know, they were going to do a benefit show for me in El Paso. And I was just going to send a video like, thank you guys, I appreciate it. But one of my friends like, well, if they're going to do it, why don't you just travel over there and be on the show? And I was like, man, well, I don't know. Like, I haven't gone back up. But then I was like, you know what? Maybe I can be on it. Then they're like, well, if you're going to be on it, you might as well record it. So then I was like, well, maybe I'll just record it and then we'll turn it into a special. So it just kind of trickled into it. But I wasn't expecting like I had a blood clot on my jugular vein, which stopped me from practicing my set. The chemo knocks me out, you know. So I've only had about, honestly, I've been able to do maybe 3 sets since I got diagnosed for 5 minutes each. So I've been on stage for a total of 15 minutes at an open mic, which is dead drunk crowds. You know what I mean? So I've only had 15 minutes to practice this special that I'm going to be recording at the El Paso comic strip. And that's insane. Plus, I have new material that I've never even attempted. So I don't even know if it's going to work. You know what I mean?
Oh, you'll find out quick.
Yes. It's like this big undertaking that I put on myself. And like, I'm just trying to put it all together. And I still got to go to my appointments. I got to check on my benefits. I got to recover from chemo. The jugular vein thing with the blood clot on that threw me off for like 2 weeks, 3 weeks. And so it's just been all these little things that have been happening, but I'm managing it. I'm getting through. The guy who was going to produce my special, which I had already locked in, just called me and told me that he can't do it because he double booked. And I was like, no. So now he was going to do it for free. And we had a whole thing going on. I was like, perfect. I don't have to worry about that because I can't work right now because I'm trying to get my benefits and get all that. So now I'm searching for somebody in El Paso or somebody to help me to produce this special. So now I have 1 week to come up with that. You know, and I don't know what budget they have. I don't know if I'm even going to be able to afford it. But I have 1 week to find another guy that's going to produce this special for me. So it's just all this is happening and it's insane. But, you know, it keeps me going, man. Like for me to even be saying that I'm going through this as hard as it is, but to say that I'm going through this and attempting it is a statement, you know, and a testament of the human condition, you know, of the spirit, that even me just going through this and putting it all together, I'm doing something that cancer didn't stop me from doing, no matter what. And it's not going to. It's not going to ever. Cancer will never, ever stop me from living my life. Even if I got to work around you, I'll work around you, but you're not going to stop me completely, you know. And that feels good, man. It feels good. I feel good that I'm able to attempt to do something as hard as it is, but I'm going for it. You know, and that's what I always try to motivate people who are sick or they're going through an illness or whatever it is that you're going through. You have more strength in you than you can even possibly imagine. You do. It's all inside of you. Like we have a limited amount of strength and power inside of us already inherited. It's already in you. And sometimes we don't know because we never get challenged. But when you get challenged, that's where it comes out. You know, if you're willing to really go through it, you can pull that out of you and it'll get you through anything. It'll get you through all of the things that life throws your way, you know, and all it takes is for you to just challenge yourself to get there, you know?
It's so powerful to hear you say that because it's 100% true. And I think sometimes we forget that, you know, from whatever distractions we have in our life. And there are a lot of distractions in the world to easily distract us. I got a couple questions left, and then we want to share where our audience can connect and follow you and hopefully get involved in some of the things you're doing that you mentioned. One of the questions that I wrote down here, this is like these are like loaded questions. There's no right or wrong to them. given your experience, you have 15 years in comedy, man. This is all you've known. And I always find like, I guess there's been some hate with some comedians recently about certain topics, but like, I always feel like comedy is always there to bring people up. Like it's to make people laugh. It's to be like most comedians are pretty positive in terms of their skits. Like, right. Like there's not like doom and gloom in it. So do you ever look back at like you were talking about being like your spirit was broken and you had this hopelessness, but like your job for 15 years was to make people laugh and to bring this happiness into that. So like you're like the consummate person of bringing happiness and joy into someone's life to complete strangers.
Yes, absolutely. It's been, I mean, I knew I wanted to be a comedian since I was about like 9 years old. I already knew it. It was like a calling. It wasn't nothing that I could explain or it just, I already knew by the time I was 9. And then by the time I wanted to make people laugh for the rest of my life when I was 9. At 13, I realized how you can do it. I saw stand-up. I was like, oh, that's how you do it. Like you do stand-up comedy. And I just became like obsessed with stand-up comedy. Like, I know people would watch sports and they had their athletes or whatever. Like my athletes were comedians. Like those were my baseball cards. You know what I mean? And I told myself I'm going to be a stand-up comedian. I would tell everybody at school, my teachers, my principals, like, I'm going to be a stand-up comedian. They're like, oh, here comes Israel, comedian. But they didn't even realize how serious and like how dead serious I was with it. Yeah. So as soon as I got out of high school, I think I waited like about a year. And then I started to just do open mics. And I was so young that I couldn't even go into the bars to try out material. I would be begging like the bouncers, like, let me just do some comedy and I'll leave, like, please. And I'd be like, I just want to do these jokes. And after a while, they got used to me and they already knew, like, all right, it's coming here. So, but I built, and it was a lot, but I was able to just keep it going from there, and after that, I just started getting word out, and then other things came up, and then the more I did it, the further I went along in my career, and then I just eventually got to a place where I was actually doing it full time, and it was pretty neat.
So do you ever look back? Have you looked back in the last 4 months and be like, man, like 15 years, I'm like the happy guy and like snap out of this, man.
Yeah. Like, what's weird? There's two things that I think I want to say with that is I sometimes, because I've gained a big, strong faith out of this. That's one good thing that I have gotten closer in my faith. And I feel sometimes, you get put in situations that you might not understand. And I feel like maybe God put me in this situation because that's where he needs me now, because being in these hospitals and to this day, my biggest struggle right now, I mean, obviously besides battling cancer, but like outside existentially is that building that I go into all the time, that emo building. That's like my Goliath, every time I go in there, I can't, like, I still struggle with it, it's a sad place sometimes. It could get really bad, and what better person to be in there than a comedian? You know what I mean? I go in there, I make everybody laugh just naturally, just by being myself. The nurses are in a good mood. They already know me, like, oh, it's Israel. There's patients that talk to me and they know me as a person, and sometimes I feel like that's where I'm needed right now. And that totally blew my mind, that now it's like, I'm not in the comedy clubs as much right now as I want to be, but I'm in this other place that is just as powerful. And if anything, it's turned into something even more meaningful now. Now I don't want to just make you laugh. I want to impact you. I want to change the way you think. I want to wake you up, And that's one thing that I really understood. And I look back, when you go through things like this, I mean, there's so many things that cross your mind. And one thing that definitely has crossed my mind is you question your mortality. That's just something that we all go through. I know you think about that, death, and how much time do I have? Those are things that you contemplate, and I've been able to do that, and one thing that I really like got out of it, I look back at my life, and I realized like all those times that I was broke and all those times that my car would break down in the middle of nowhere and I didn't know who to call and I'm in some crappy town and I got to pay the tow truck all the money I had from the show that I made to go tow it somewhere. And it just gets me there. And I don't know how I'm going to pay the mechanic. I went through so much. But looking back on it now in the situation that I'm in, I feel so grateful and lucky for the choices that I made with my life. Mm-hmm. Maybe they were crazy, maybe they were insane, but I'm so happy that I got to do what I wanted to do with my life. If I would have had a job that I hated, but I was there because it gives me a check, and now I'm living the paycheck to paycheck, and then I got sick, right? And then now you can't do the one thing that you always wanted to do because now you can't do it anymore. You cannot do that right now. That should terrify people. The sickness shouldn't scare you. It's not that. It's what are you doing with your life? That should scare you because no matter what, something's going to get us. It's just what it is. Life happens that way. And hopefully we all live a long, prosperous life. But time isn't guaranteed to you. It just isn't. It isn't. And if you have something that you have to do or that you want to do, you better do it now. Don't wait till tomorrow. Don't wait for the thing to come at the right moment. There's no right moment. It's just now. You have to attempt to do that thing because God forbid something happens. You get sick. You get paralyzed. My friend, 20-something years old, just got paralyzed. All these things. But if you're not attempting to do something that you're doing now, you don't know what could happen tomorrow. So that's one thing that I always push. And I'm so lucky that I did those things because I don't have any regrets. And if anything, me getting sick and thinking back on all of that has validated everything that I believed in, So I'm not bitter. I don't have any regrets. I've lived an amazing life. I've traveled all over the country. I've seen things that I never imagined I would have seen. I got to meet all my heroes, in the field. And I've just been able to do so many amazing things. So looking back on it, I'm like, you know what? I was right. I was right with everything that I went for. And was it easy? No, but it's worth it in the end. When you try to do something special or whatever it is that you want to do, it's just go for it now. Like try to attempt it, try it out. If you don't like it, then move on. But at least at least be the person that's out there attempting something, And that's one thing that I'm like, man, I was right. Like I was right, and now I'm sick and I can't do it, but I did all the things that I could do, obviously now I'm doing now more things, but it's just different now. It changed up a little bit.
Well, it evolves, right? But
yeah,
what you just said is like sums up life, man. Like, how many people wake up every day and grind out that job that they hate, but they love the paycheck or they need the paycheck, not necessarily love the paycheck, but and commute. Like I see it like going into the city. Like how many people really love going on the train every morning at 7:00 in the morning and then coming back at 7:00 at night, and they look so miserable. Their health sucks, and it's a job. But like, what you said is pretty powerful, and not saying that there's a reason to all this, but to have that reflection and to realize maybe someone listening on the other side that isn't in a good space, hearing that, puts them in the better space where they want to be, gives them the courage to do what they want to do and live a happy life and not be miserable or, be in that position. Because to your point, we've said this, time is never guaranteed. Tomorrow's never guaranteed, man. We don't control that. You control today, and you can control that, but tomorrow, man, you may not wake up. Or you may get sick, or there may not be a tomorrow.
Yes. Yeah.
So powerful. My last question here, Israel.
Yeah.
And then we're going to share with our audience where to connect with you. This is a loaded question. There's no right or wrong. 36 years old. The last 4 months have been upside down for you because of this thing called pancreatic cancer. What is your definition of pancreatic cancer? How do you define it?
Oh, man. How do I describe pancreatic cancer? It's kind of like I think I would describe it as, it's like a curse and a blessing at the same time. You know, you sometimes it's a curse in the sense that nobody wants it. You know, it affects my health. It affects how I live my life. It stops me from doing certain things that I want. It takes a toll on you. Every day I wake up is a battle. You know, I wake up, I have my days where I'm, not happy. I cry, and it feels like a curse at times. But in the same way, it's also been in a really messed up way. It has been a blessing, and for me to say that now, if I would have told myself that a couple of months ago, I'd be like, you're crazy, you're insane. There's nothing here, but when you're able to find the positive, because there's a positive in anything,
Mm-hmm.
and whatever it is that you're going through, you can always find something good in it. And it might be the most hardest thing. And it's hard. And I know some people might understand it because it's cancer and it's pancreatic cancer, but it has been a blessing because it's gotten it clears up a lot of bullshit in your life, and I had a lot of that. There's a lot of things that we focus on that doesn't really matter. It doesn't. There's all these things that we set our focus on, and getting sick like this has kind of cleared my view, and I just appreciate things a lot more now. I've gotten closer to God, my family. There's just a lot of things a lot of good things that have come out of it. And now I feel just so poised and driven, and it's cleared up a lot of stuff for me that has now let me live a more pure life, and so it's a little bit of both. I would describe it as a curse and a blessing at the same time because, I feel that way. I have been able to find a silver lining in the most darkest of places. In the most darkest time in my life, I have found something good. And that says a lot about myself, and to anybody that's going through that and feels the same way. I give kudos to you. I tip my hat off because it's not easy to get there. But if you're willing to be strong enough to get through it, and you will, it'll just change your life forever. And it's up to you to decide, what is it going to do? Is it going to keep you down, or are you going to do something good with it? And I've been able to, through the strength that God gave me, I've been able to get up, and fight. And that's where I'm at right now. I'm in this battle, but I don't feel weak anymore. I don't feel weak. I don't feel like a victim. I don't say, why me? Because why not you? What makes you any different? What makes you so special? Nothing does. There's kids out there who have cancer right now. There's kids right now, 3, 4, 5, 6 years old in these hospitals right now, and they're dying of cancer or they're fighting cancer. So it's not about that, Time is not something that's guaranteed. You shouldn't worry about time. I know some people are like, well, I don't have time. And none of us have time. The time is passing. There's nothing you can do to control time. So stop worrying about time. That shouldn't be something you focus on because you can't control it. Time is unstoppable. You can't do anything to slow down time. So why are you focused on the time? What you should be focused on is the impact that you've had with the time that you've been given. That's what you should be worried about. What are you doing with the time that you have? That should worry you. Don't worry about how much time you have. Worry about the impact that you've had with the time that you've been given. That's a real important thing. So that's what I've gotten out of all of that. And that's how I would describe what I've gotten out of my whole journey with pancreatic cancer.
Man, I got to be honest with you, Israel, for 36 years old, and to have this experience, what you just said, and I always say there's no right or wrong to that answer, by the way. Everyone has their own individual answer and how they've dealt with it, but it's just so powerful, man. And I just wrote that down. Impact with the time you've been given, and as we were, talking before we hit record, and not that it's about me, this episode hasn't been, but before my dad was diagnosed, I was really concerned with one thing: making as much money as I could. you know, and then my dad gets this diagnosis and I was like, man, like, and I was making good money, but like, it didn't satisfy me, man. The cup wasn't there, you know, it wasn't filling my cup. And, you know, it's just wild how things happen in people's lives. And it is a blessing, to your point. And I truly believe that, to be able to have that mindset and those thoughts and that ideology, because I don't think many people get there, man. I really don't. And it's kind of sad, you know, but it's really special. And I really appreciate you being honest and open and sharing your journey that you've been on so far. For our audience listening and for myself, where's the best place to follow you and follow along and to kind of follow the journey that you're on?
Everybody can follow me on any social media platform. I'm on all of them. You guys look me up under One Bad Comic. That's ONEBADCOMIC. I'm on Instagram, Facebook, all that stuff. In TikTok, I have, you know, a collection of videos and sketches and stuff that I've built up around, you know, over the years of doing stand-up comedy. So I post up my dates and stuff like that on there. And yeah, that's pretty much where anybody can follow me. Feel free to reach out to me if you're going through anything or you need some advice or anything. That's what we're here for. And I really, I admire what you're doing here with Project Purple. I mean, I know from the little bit that we talked and what you told me, what you've gone through, it's commendable. You said a lot of people don't get there, you know, and like something like you, where you just said what you just said, you know, I mean, look how life changes, you know, and the thing that I always recommend, sometimes I hear a lot of people thinking like, well, I can't do this anymore. And they're stuck on the person that they were, but you're not that person anymore. You know, you're this person, there's a new version of you, and we have to be okay with that, you know, because it's all going to be something good out of it. You know, your past changed and look what you're doing now. I don't know how it was back then, but what you're doing now is a bigger impact on people on a daily basis. Like people like your company organization is helping more people than you even know, and you're impacting people all over the world. You know, you're doing all these changes and impacting people all the time. Like, that's awesome, man. That's so cool to hear your story that way, man. And I appreciate it as a person who's going through it, because there isn't a lot. I mean, I'm always, any resource that I could find or anything like that is crucial for my growth, you know, and to help me navigate this. So, you know, I appreciate you having me on and putting me on the spotlight here with you. And I know what you guys are doing there is great. And I hope we continue to build on it, you know. So thank you for having me.
The pleasure's all mine, Israel. Thank you for being a guest on the Project Purple podcast and for sharing your journey with our audience.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it, Dino. Thanks for having me. Love to be back.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Project Purple podcast. If you like today's episode, please share this episode and make sure to follow the Project Purple podcast wherever you listen to podcasts. That is a wrap of another episode of the Project Purple podcast. Thanks for listening. And until next time, be safe.